So we have to start now. But before we start our discussion this afternoon, just some housekeeping rules, or I guess information. There are two washrooms, gender neutral washrooms, that are just on this corner here, right opposite the restaurant or right beside the elevator. So if you need to use the washroom, you just go there. There are two gendered washrooms down this hallway on this floor. So if you need to go to that one as well, you can feel free to do that. As Sub mentioned, we'll open up the floor to questions after both our speakers have spoken. And when you want to ask a question, it's, we've done this all our lives as students, so please raise your hand and I'll call on you. And finally, when you do ask a question, please mention your name and your affiliation, just so we know who's in the room and just to, aid networking afterwards. We know who to target after this session. So to begin our discussion, I'm going to introduce our first speaker. So Dr. Moshope Fagonde is an associate counsel at Beckering York Barristers, BYB, LLP. She's an internationally trained lawyer and she earned her PhD from the UBC Faculty of Law in 2010. She was a sessional lecturer at the faculty before returning to private practice. Dr. Moshope is called the Nigerian Bar, the British Columbia Bar, and the Alberta Bar. She has extensive experience in a wide range of legal matters through her current practice, focused on personal injury, employment and human rights law, family and general civil litigation. Dr. Moshope has a goal-oriented approach to law with a focus on obtaining the best possible outcomes and the most cost-effective solutions for her clients. Over the years, Dr. Moshope has consistently made strong contributions to her community in a variety of different ways, such as currently being a member of the UBC Alumni Board and other nonprofit organizations. She's committed to excellence and service to her community, which we can see by her presence here today. So please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. I think this is a very important conversation that is being had, and I think it's a very good time to have it, especially for those who are just starting their programs, whether it is masters or whether it's PhD in different faculties. So I'm going to pretty much talk about my experiences as a graduate student and how I was able to navigate the process of becoming a practicing lawyer in Canada. I know maybe I should ask for some of the faculties that are represented here, just for me to know how deep I want to go in terms of my examples. Can anybody just tell me your department or faculties?
Arts, economics.
Okay. Any other different ones? I know I spoke to someone who is from biomedical engineering. Wow. Any other departments? Yes. Medicine, forestry, linguistics, public policy. So this is a wide range of areas, and I know for sure that many of you have worked in your past life before coming to Canada, and have so many different experiences from those careers that you've had in the past. But as a graduate student, I think the first thing you have to do when you come to Canada is to be present and to engage in what you're doing. So the reason I'm saying this is because the first place where you get connected is in your program. So within the program, I think you have to recognize where you are and what you are here for. Within your program, you have your supervisors, you have your, if you are doing a PhD, you have your committee members. And those are your first port of call because they know the system here. They know what to do, they know where the grants or where the help can come from. So you have to be present in terms of connecting with these people. It is very important to connect with your professors, with your advisors, or whether it is your supervisor or committee. Like I said, they have the knowledge of faculty, they have the knowledge of the university. They can help you navigate grants or conferences or international programs that you can be a part of. And the reason I'm saying this is because oftentimes they have means of helping you to get to these things. And the reason these things are important is because when you eventually finish and you need a resume that says this is what you've done, you want to have a resume that speaks to you being engaged in your program. So you can't leave your program and say, oh, you don't want to, interact with your professors, because we as African, at least from Nigeria, we have this reverence for our professors. We don't want to, sir, we can't, that is not the process here. You have to engage. So you have to talk to them. You have to find ways of connecting with them. So for instance, for me, I was telling the person I was telling the truth and lie to that I had the opportunity to selected to go to MIT in the US to be a part of a graduate program. And the only reason I was selected is because I was engaged with my professors. They told me about the program. They said, Moshope, apply for this program, see if you will accept it. And I was selected. So these are the kinds of things that only your professors may know. And these are important when you're looking for a job. When they see your CV, it is significant when you say you've been to MIT, you've been to this, you've done that, you presented at this or that. So those are very important things to do. Your committee members, they know where the jobs are sometimes, or your supervisor, they know, they have affiliations outside the faculty. So for instance, I was able to be a part of a group that wrote Canada's position on one of the women's rights program. And that is also because one of my professors was kind enough to recommend me when I said, oh, I need a teaching or research position. So you have to be very vocal. I said to her, I need a research teaching position. I am looking for one. Do you know anybody who's looking for a researcher? And she connected me with that person. And I was able to be part of writing that paper, still online today. So other resources that you have include your faculty, in your faculty. So this is a good example of the kind of things that you can engage in that is useful for how you are going to navigate your career. For instance, the graduate students organization, they have so in the faculty you have whatever society. In faculty of law, I know I was, whether it's a treasurer or something, I can't remember now, it's been a long time ago. But you take leadership positions in those societies or in those groups. And when you have your CV again, it shows your leadership quality. If you run for those positions, you can't be quiet. You can't just sit down and sit back. You have to be part of what's going on. Some of the people I met at the Graduate Students Society who are still friends today. Sometimes I call on people and I say, oh, I need this. And they are very open to connecting me with people. So for instance, Joanne, who is the graduate person at the Faculty of Law, I was in Faculty of Law 2010. That was the last time I was there, but she still remember, oh, okay, I taught there in 2013, but she still remembers me. That is what you want. Or you want to be impactful. You want to be remembered. When somebody says, "Oh, we're looking for somebody." For instance, in last year, the Alumni Association called me out of the blues and said, "We want you to be a member of the Alumni Advisory Council." It's because people know my name because I was at the faculty. So be present, be a part of, be engaged with what is going on in your department. Also, I think it is very important that you also find out the programs that are going on within the university. So, for instance, at the time I was a student, I remember attending one of these cultural diversity programs. And what is that? What does that mean? It tells you what the culture in Canada is. So, for instance, I was saying that you have to look people in the eye. So, in Nigeria, for instance, you are not supposed to look at people in the eye. You are not supposed to look at your elders in the eye and say something. But in Canada, you must, because if you don't, it is seen as being lacking confidence or not being straightforward or open and all of that. So you want to look for things that are going on campus. This is one example. It is very useful. No matter how small it is, you network, you hear some things that will stay with you for as long as you are here in Canada. Also, remember who you are. Be yourself. This is a new environment, this is a new place. But you came here with something. You came here with your knowledge, your work experience, your education, everything. So you can't take those, you can't undervalue those things. So when you start to network, which is a big thing here, you have to network. Finding your job would be through networking most of the time. You have to network and don't be afraid to just call upon somebody, make a phone call, go online, search for jobs and all of that. Call them and ask them for a coffee date. I want to have a chat with you. I want to know more about your career. You know, those are things that you can do when you get to that point. But right now, I think the main thing is making sure you know what you're doing and being engaged in those things. Also, it is important that you know when you have a plan, you have a career plan when you come for a master's program. Don't underestimate yourself when it comes to going forward with your career. There may be exams, there may be all sorts of certifications that you need to do. Don't let, I know that there are challenges like finances, or maybe you have a family that you have to take care of, but don't lose sight of the fact that you will ultimately have a better life if you are able to do those things that you need to do. Sometimes people say, "Oh, but when I do it, I will not get this, I will not get that." Leave that, leave that to when you've done it. Because I always say that you regret those things you do not do, not the things that you do. If you do not do it, you will not know if you could have done it. So please don't let anything like that stop you from doing what you need to do. I don't know, I know there will be questions. I think it will be better when you ask questions as to those things that you want to know really. But I think I might just stop here for now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moshote, for all of those insights and advice and information that you shared with us. So now I'm going to call on our second speaker. And our second speaker is Professor Samson Nashon, and he's the head of the Department of Curriculum and Pedagogy at UBC. Throughout his more than 19-year tenure at UBC, he has established multiple and extensive working relationships with scholars and universities worldwide. He's an active member of the African Awareness Initiative Board, AAI, African Studies Minor Program Board, and the International STEM Free Association Advisory Board. Professor Nashon is a science educator and was a former high school teacher of physics and mathematics. His major research initiatives have resulted in multiple large-scale collaborations, including the metacognition and reflective inquiry, and the East African Students' Way of Knowing, EASWOK. And he has acted as a principal supervisor, co-supervisor, or co-member for over 34 PhD students and 50 master students. So please join me in welcoming Professor Nashon.
It's the first time I'm speaking while you're sitting. I'm a teacher, always standing, but it's good to have conversation. Thank you so much. I'd like the acknowledgement of the land acknowledgement, which to me is an indication that where you came from, you learn something about land acknowledgement. Now, my name's, as you've seen, is Samson Madera Nashon, but often is Samson Nashon. When people read you without seeing the face, they wonder where this nation comes from. Now, just a brief history about myself. I went to primary school, high school, and undergraduate. All those I did in the UK, which is in East Africa. Primary education, I used to walk about 10 miles away barefoot, back and forth. As is common to many kids in rural Africa. There are many who actually walk long distances. I used to study. The study was based on the system of examination that was prevalent at that time. It meant burning paraffin oil. So you sit, you read. In order to pass exams, the idea was, I have to get somewhere. What am I saying? There is an education phrase, but I will be using some of the education phrases that I taught to you. A key person in education field is John Dewey. And John Dewey, in his 1948 book, he said, whatever you do, whatever you think of, must be an end in view. In other words, I want to end there. How you get there is what we are discussing. Each one of you has an end in view. I want to be, but then that's what we are discussing here. So my undergraduate career teaching in schools, then I get a scholarship, quite a number of scholarships, to go and do my master's in the UK. But I will use my experience, how sometimes I manage those experiences, to kind of see how we navigate some of the delicate situations. But how did you manage those situations to end up in positions where we are? So I go to the UK to do my master's. When I traveled there, I went to my admission letter, a university, a scholar, and the passport. There was no visa at that time. These days they have introduced a visa to people from Commonwealth countries. I'm looking at times then, this is in the 80s, the times now, how sometimes we react to events very quickly. So I arrived at the immigration desk, I'm in my documents. Why I'm sharing this story, previous speaker, thanks for what you shared, said something about relationship and the ability to make this relationship professional. So I arrived at the immigration desk, handing my documents. This gentleman quickly looked at me, got the documents, placed them in the drawer, and they said, next. It happened to you at the Vancouver International Airport. So I moved aside. The fellow behind me was sad. The guy back the door, go to my documents. Read the shocker. Said something. How have you after this many years? What this was? This was my high school physics teacher. Here I am going for masters. The guy taught me physics in high school. The same way they confuse us, they think, can't tell the difference. Well, that was said. Couldn't tell the difference. But as soon as he said that, I realized it's happy. So for the 3 years I was in the UK, I used to have Christmas gift at this place, relationships. But for him, remember my performance. That's why he asked, how have you been? It's not just because he saw me for that. You remember, this boy used to do well. He was happy. So it's a pathway. And in my mind, I thought, okay, this is what I'm doing. So I finished my master's, went back. But for some years, they come to the doctorate. The University of Toronto. Relationships. I had gone to A-level, another school in Kenya. So while at the University of Toronto, same now program, then the supervisor, when you are told you must have very good relationship with your supervisor. If I tell you who was my supervisor, surprised. This fellow, when I was in England, I didn't know he moved to the University of Toronto. Okay, yeah. I didn't know he moved to the University of Toronto. So my supervisor tells me, we'll give you a job to go and supervise students on teaching practice. Can you go to his office? As soon as I went to that office, somebody said, I don't believe it. Why? This is a fellow who taught me in A-level. So you encounter these experiences and you'll be treated well. When you're given anything small, do it well. The reason why I'm saying do it well, this is what is building your CV.
because that is what you write down as testimonial. Be given such a teaching position or a supervision and you do it in a mediocre way, something has happened. And when you are doing it, when you are a graduate student, the other students who might be lower than you or under, please relate to them well. Because they're the ones who will give you feedback and it's confidential. This is the most important information any employer looks. What is the feedback on your ability to do what you want to do? That is very critical. So I always say this, whatever, and I'll talk about research because graduate students, they have supervised students. When they come, they want to work in Canada. So their research must be here. That is not the case always. Unless you are working on your professor's project, where it is stated here, you can do a research in a different context. But what is important is the findings, the way you define them, and the relevance of those findings to other contexts. How you draw conclusions. They don't have to be generalized. They have to be, it's context specific. It's culturally defined, meaning what I define in this culture might be different from another one. But what you've done is educated the public that if you go here, this might appear different. It might appear different. What you do, because I'm talking to graduate students, publish. You don't have to aim for the topmost journal while at this level of your journey. Any journal, so long as it's in your field and you have something very useful, write it. There can be, people can look at your application differently, but at some point, the quality of the application is what will count. You can argue, can say, okay, they are not in this group or that group, but at some point, it's the quality of the application. That teaching you are doing, or that supervision you are doing, then a paper you are doing, then the research you are doing. That is what informs your supervisor and other professors you interact with to write you the best references. This is something people have never known. When you work well with the professors, actually what you are quoting is future references, good references. They write references for you. So don't just assume this will automatically happen. Professors are very busy. But when you quoted your reference very well, in other words, hardworking, you negotiate, because knowledge is about negotiation. It's not that you get everything, you get it right all the time. But if you acknowledge and say, oh, I've learned a lot, oh, I didn't know about that, but now, or sometimes it depends. At times you may know and have a right way of saying, I think this is how it is. They write very good references. I write references for people. But it's not just because you know a Dr. Nation. People would say, oh, what is the relationship? Then they see, oh, I was the supervisor. Or I worked with Dr. Nation on his project. Or I was a TA in his class. Or I was this. They know this person understands you. And they write that. You know, and I always share with the graduate students, but never use it to kind of professors to use it. Learn to draft. Imagine you are writing a reference to someone like you, and learn to draft the best reference that is truthful about you and your strength in everything. Because this is what I've learned in the field. People will not a professor who is very close to you and knows you are a strong student, you're a good student, because it's not easy to draft a very good reference. And you want a quick reference because some job has popped up. And this professor must write a reference. They say, can you draft something for me? Then I'll polish it up. So don't just also wait for the professor to draft it. Good working relationship. We don't always do that, but there are times you need an emergency reference. And the people are very busy. Somebody will say, can you draft something? And let me push it up. One thing, don't ever exaggerate. And don't underestimate your strength. So base it on that. So to me, one thing I would say, life is full of challenges. But it's you who is in need. Not everything will always be pleasant, but learn to manage situations. When you are still the one hunting, then you have to look for a better way of hunting. The reason why I'm saying this is because I sit in forums. People talk about students. Oh, that one I may never write a reference for that. That one is rude. That one is whatever. These are not things, but I'm sharing this because I also have children. So it's something you need to know. It's professional. Tell people the truth. So it's good when you are in a graduate school, you know that there is a agenda. Always an end in view. It's what you need to think of. I came here in 2001. I have gone through experiences. When I came to this place, I was doing some research in some school, somebody jumps on me and says, will you be my supervisor? And I said, yes. Submit your application. It's great. And I say, I'll supervise. But things happen. He's selected, but That's now where we say there is something else, relationship. Someone somewhere told, oh, this person can't be admitted because of a mistake they did. Some person. But when I asked for the mistake, it was trivial. And it's not of our, the person is not of our background. In other words, what I'm saying, we are to help, even at graduate level, help everyone to gain a reputation, to come to be known. We help our own as we help everyone else. So I always insist on relationships with everyone. And the slogan I use for being a department head, that this is my second, this is the last term. I always say, mine is to look for, there is always something good in everyone. My role is to look for it, and capitalize on that. You capitalize on that, the negative disappears. Students make the supervisors become better supervisors. Even if they don't smile, students can make them smile. And then lastly, because I'm better, I respond to questions. A particular student, what I can't name the name, had been admitted into the doctoral program and I was the supervisor. And you know, also from Nigeria, others from East Africa, others from whatever parts, English is really a very strict language. We've added a bit of our local words here and there. And it's not when you speak while there, it's smooth English. So this fellow was told to write a nice essay, and they wrote an essay to one of the professors, and they used local words that were that were African. To be specific, I'll give the language. They were Swahili, added in English. It was written. So I was the supervisor. But that professor, he couldn't understand the circle of those words. Question marks. And then he gave the grade was the minimum. Because wanted to know the meanings of this. And I'm sitting in my office around lunchtime. The student storms my office. And they say, what is this? Racism? That's how to explain. Or what? What? I say, what? Oh. So I say, okay, let me read. And I read. I see the professor's point. These are Swahili words. So I asked, what is the meaning of this word? And the student asked me, you don't know? I thought you come from. These are words. Then I said, do you know that these are Swahili words? So I directed to the dictionary, saying, look for this, give them ears. You know, when you put quotes and explain. So did that. Then I said, let's play again. Don't ask for a tell. Could you write back and thank the professor for the feedback? And ask if the professor was willing to look at your revised paper and give you feedback. Don't talk about the grades. And indeed the professor said, sure, I look at it. Well, let's see. This is a wonderful paper. It moved from that one A. If the individual is always posting on some of the academic social media, oh, the best professor is Dr. Nash, because she believed I performed, or he believed, whatever, I performed miracles. What I'm sometimes reflect, it could be how we related. You could mess up, you could be responsible. Not always, but let's see how it's always good to be careful or know that we can make mistakes, but we can improve. So sleeping one day does not mean every day. Let's learn from our mistakes sometimes. But when you relate well in an environment where you discuss and so on, you find that things tend to correct themselves. I am not trying to suggest we tolerate any discriminatory whatever, but there are times I personally have said it is not my problem, it is the other person's. And you'll find that in the end, when it turns around, because they find everyone else seeing you as a very good person, but it's their problem. Thank you so much. I hope I've not messed you up. Those are the comments.
Thank you so much, Professor Nathan, for all of those insights. Now I'll just invite Dr. Mushoka to please join us at the front, and then we'll open up the floor to questions. So as I mentioned earlier, please raise up your hands if you have questions, and kindly share your name and affiliation, and go ahead and ask your questions. Who's going to be our first brave, bold person? Okay, we have a dilemma. So gray shirt.
You can use the wireless.
I see, okay. I think we'll just pass it to the center, and then I'll put the wireless one. Okay.
You can just talk. Let me figure it out.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Not first. Wonderful. I'm happy to be here. So I have a question. First speaker, Dr. Fred. I don't want to pronounce it. Yeah. My name is Vincent. I'm an LLM student, taxation here in UBC. So I have a question. I'm about to apply for NCA because I'm looking to get my license here to practice in Canada. So first of all, I want to know when will be the best time to assessment, because NCA will ask you to write a particular series of exams depending on what you have been taught and your experience. So I'm thinking of whether to request the assessment right now, during my program, or when I'm done with my program. Reason being that I want to write the least exams as possible, because LLMT is already stressful. So, but I want them to see my resume and feel like, okay, fine, he has completed the whole program of Canada. I want you to know when the best time to apply for assessment, whether it's right now or after the program. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I understand your situation, and I think for me, I would say the earlier the better, because they usually assess you based on your undergrad. and barrister law school qualification. So really, your master's does not really count. So you want to do it as soon as possible. Some people actually do it while doing their program, but it depends on your ability. So I think it's the sooner the better.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Lisa from the Department of Department here at UBC. I do have a question for Professor Sampson, and it has to do with education with adults that have disabilities, like hearing disabilities. So how does that work? Probably you have a certificate from your home country as an educator, probably in special studies, and you're trying to translate that into an experience here or a job over here. So how would that work? Especially, I'm not talking about people who are, let's say, have no disabilities, because I have concerns for that. Right, because I see a lot of information about other aspects, but I think people, students who have disabilities and are in the education sector.
I just want to make sure we're talking about, education, and there are kids who have disabilities.
Like where you are actually in education, but you also have a disability and you want to continue in teaching.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So typically what happens is, maybe you have a disability, there is a set. Depends if you are from outside Canada. Typically, what they do, they have courses they offer in faculties of education. At UBC, there is a department in our faculty called Department of Psychology, Special Education, and so on, whereby they offer certain courses for people to, if you are from outside and you already had some qualification or you have that, so that once you've gone through that program, not a very long, just a course, or if it's a program, and then they'll assess you, they say whether you go through that program. And that is very important, actually. They will give you that designation and get to look for work or employ anyone else. And it applies to everyone else. There are times in certain professions that are very country specific. And when you come to Canada, you are still that. I would advise, doesn't really matter if you have, it would be helpful to just take a course on so to update and
Please go ahead in the black shirt.
Hi everyone, my name is Chizi from Faculty of Medicine, Occupational and Environmental Hygiene Master. I have two questions, one for each speaker. So I'll start with Dr. Mushoke. My question is, so when you're trying to get involved in activities, trying to reach out, like you just pass through your program, how do you balance that? Because it's a bit chaotic and trying to balance that without getting burnt out. And should I ask my second question, or will you answer? Yeah. Okay. Then my second question is, sometimes I don't want to say I don't want to being a victim or anything, it's for the connection, but sometimes I'm the only Black student, Black female in my program. So sometimes there are very uncomfortable situations where either some professors underestimate you, or some try to have to work on eggshells around you. They try so hard not to upset you. So how do you handle those kind of situations, relationship?
Okay. I'll start with trying not to burn out. That's a big one, because I remember that while I was doing mine, interestingly, I have 2 children, my husband, and my children were quite young at the time. I had a 7-year-old and a 12-year-old, when I was doing my program. And I had to take care of them, I had to work as a teaching assistant or research assistant. I had to be part of the programs, and I had to do my work. I had to do my comprehensives and all of that. So I think you know yourself the best. So you know how you can, manage your time, and it is time management. I know for myself, I remember at the time, Facebook was the most popular at the time, and I would tell myself that, when I want to take a break from studying, I say, okay, I'll do FaceTime for 30 minutes, and not and I'll actually set my alarm that after 30 minutes, stop. So you know yourself the best. You know how you can manage your time. So you have to figure out the best way for yourself. And before Dr. Nashan responds to your questions, I think the issue of whether or not you face all kinds of discrimination or stereotypes, that is a fact. And like Dr. Nashan has said, you have to navigate this very carefully, because ultimately it's relationship management. How do you manage your relationship with your professors, with those around you? I'll give you a good example for myself. When I first started my PhD at UBC, I had a supervisor, and that supervisor would look at my work and would mark it on in red. I had 2 masters before I started my PhD, one from University of Manitoba. So you can imagine it was all red. Every time I was depressed when I saw my papers. And I began to question myself that, is it because I don't know how to write, or what is the problem? And one day I just told myself that, I have to do something about this. I have to take a stand. And well, I'm a Christian, so I prayed about it. And, I had the conviction that I needed to move on. It's either I stopped my program or I found another supervisor. And I know this can be very political within the faculty. If you say you want a different supervisor, it becomes something, it can be blown up into something big. So I talked to one of the people in my committee, and I said to her, I'm having a bit of a challenge. It seems that, things are not working well in my program, and I think maybe I'll just drop out. When I said drop out, it was a big deal. She said, why would you drop out? What can be going on? And I said, my relationship is just not working out. So she said, okay, you know what? We'll navigate it. So she, they know how to talk to each other. So ultimately, I was able to change my supervisor, but my committee remained the same. So you have to have relationships with people around you, because when they know you, they know your work, they know what you can do, they will be willing to stand up for you. This has happened not only at my PhD program, but even at work currently. People will stand up for you when they know your ability, your professionalism as well. And You can't blow up and, throw a tantrum when everything is not working. You have to navigate those situations. And those are the things you have to begin to learn as you start your program, as you continue your program.
Just wanted to say, you listen to her carefully. She said the rest of the committee stayed on.
Yes.
That's very important. That meant without revealing, the rest of the committee understood what was happening.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the whole thing would have collapsed. They just know is the student, you will not have the same committee. But committee make people know, they understand. So that's a very important. Good to make good relationship and perform. Very important. Now, the question you asked is a very tricky one. But I'll give you an example. When you were saying this, I remember when I came to Canada. This is not now at university level, but it's exactly the same experience. My daughter went to a particular grade 8 class. And there was a mathematics class. So the teacher would teach and we want them to solve the exercises, the other problems, using the same method that was given in the book. But I am a mathematician. There are many ways some of these problems can be solved. But he understood that. Yeah. So he used to work out and get the right answer. So the teacher would see the right answer. But what the teacher used to do is to put a pen the way you would try, you want to mark, but because it's not following that, then it would leave it. Now, what I thanked the teacher for, she did this 3 times. They decided to ask the student, the answers are right. Can you tell me how you're getting? Then she explained. The teacher understood it's an alternative method of solving the problem. She said, oh, my dad taught me how to do this. I was invited to the school. So I always commend such a teacher who gave the child an opportunity to explain. But there are others who may never give that opportunity, as you are saying. They will think this is just wrong because it's not agreeing with what they know. Now, part of my writings, my publications, it is a statement that I made, cited all of. I say, often when teachers are faced with a challenge, they tend to teach the way they are taught. You will find that happening. When it's a challenge, you find them saying, I think my professor used just do this, I will dismiss it. And the other one, which is very, because of the environment, I'm very concerned about the current climate. There's a tendency to kind of not want to tell you even if you are wrong, because they don't know how you might react. And they are now is a perpetuation to allow you to make that mistake. But they are whispering about you behind the scenes. Now I call upon it's for you to weigh the situation. But at graduate level, you could at some point just talking, you could say, oh, professor, I'm not sure that what you are telling me is right. I wasn't very sure that I was right. Are you sure? You see them changing. They tell you, and then they realize you are open to feedback. So that's what I might say, but it's a very tricky situation given the contemporary times where people are feeling, oh, I don't want to be accused of being that. So it's a matter of how do we manage this. Yeah, that's a very good question you posed by the way.
We're gonna call on the green shirt, please. Your name and affiliation.
My name is Bayo from the Faculty of Medicine. My question is to the two speakers. Sorry, I really thank you for your speeches and how you have handled the question so far. Sometimes last year, my supervisor sent me a mail. I guess he forwarded it to me. Apparently, it was coming from the university, and it has to do with recruitment of, if I may say, put it this way, they are trying to incorporate EDI into recruitment policy in UBC. And if I will take a look at this may be something worth considering after your PhD. And believe me, I smiled. And the reason why I smiled was I asked myself the question that how easy or difficult to get appointment as a faculty within UBC, especially in the Faculty of Medicine. In the department where I have, I think I should be the only Black, even graduate student there. Getting it there is a story for another day. So I just want to ask you, sir, how easy or otherwise is it for Black graduates securing faculty position within Canadian universities?
That is a very long story. I have to go through. I wouldn't say it's that easy, but right now we have something we are calling the Scarborough Charter. Scarborough Charter, kind of where there is the push for saying that the Black people have been marginalized in Canada. They have played an equal role to many other groups. So they are being placed. There is that push to say you have a qualified Black person competing. Preference might be given to that person, but it's not necessarily guaranteed. At UBC right now, maybe you've heard of it, there has been a push to hire Black faculty. They have been given, I think, 28 positions. Right now, they're selected to advertise for 14. Each faculty has proposed a number of positions they want to hire, and they have all been submitted to the provost's office. That shortly they will be advertised. Each of those, whether law school, medicine, education, each they have a number. They are not more than 2 in many of these jurisdictions. Faculty of Arts has about 4 because it's a large faculty, and so on. The question you are asking, in my view, I would not say is it easy. I would say build your CV. When you excel in your field, you will be hired. EDI is very important. But nobody will hire you based on EDI when your qualification or your performance. It's not. So sometimes it ends up being you'll still be hired even if there was no EDI. If you're not top performer. And so, but it's based on some other underlying issues that were revealed, where in some cases, some of the applications were being ignored. But in very rare cases, you'll find in some places certain groups dominate. I have had questions about that. You may not force, you could be the only one in that field, and you might find everybody wanting you because you help them to show that you help them enrich their diversity. But my advice is always, whichever formula that is used to hire, perform so well, so that you help the future generations. Because it's too easy for humans to form opinions, stereotypes. If you hired somebody, they don't perform, it's too easy for humans to hiring a block, you're wasting time. And it's one person, and yet in all communities, you have people who are mediocre, top whatever, and so on. It's an unfortunate case. So my appeal is always, when you're hired and you're somewhere, especially when you are alone, you have a baggage. Because you are helping all of us, you're carrying our image, you're doing it. That is what we will sell for the other. So EDI is what is being spoken for the advertisements. All of them are punctuated by EDI. That we have to ensure there is equity, diversity, inclusion, and so on. In fact, there are others who added, there is a D at the end, calling it colonization, and so on. So that term is being used, and the people are pushing that so much. But my view is, let's play to that one. Perform. As I say, publish. Whatever you publish, whether it's an African, whether you do research and you publish about something unique, nothing. So long as it's in the journal, you publish. Because you are educating the society, it will count. But if you don't publish, it's very difficult. But many of you might have heard of the old shit because you publish or perish. Patient have seen people surviving. Oh, that guy, that's what it is, but he publishes a lot. It's quite good at what he writes. Even if it is an opinion piece, write it because you are educated.
Thank you. Victor?
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
My question goes to Prof. Thank you for being with us. My name is Victor, PhD in political science from Malaysia. Presently, because of my background in internet security, I'm doing a computer forensic administration in LDU, University. I also done publications published in institutional relations, women political participation in Nigeria, African Asian continent. So what I'm trying to say that
What will be written about the leader?
Dr.
I think you should psychologist because I don't know.
Yeah, talked about connection, building network here in Canada. So like people like
What do you want to be written about Lina?
teaching, with that teaching experience, going to lecturing. What would
Like
you
your email?
advise would you add towards Dr. Already? What would you add nice. Yeah, because you already been intentional, you've been there for union, station, with your editors, your advisors, on others. So what would you add on what I've said earlier? People like what I want to get into lecturing that have passion for lecturing in Canada.
For me, it's one thing you need to put the seed that you place that you are able to do, everybody is published. And then still develop your money for conferences. I know it's costly, but when you are able to attend conferences, then you have colleagues or people in the field who can give you references. Jobs are advertised, never give up. Right. When we talk of having these things, remember you're competing with others. That's something we need to emphasize here. So the more we polish the CV, so it's very important. It is something else, as much as I'm focusing on what you can do, we are forgetting something else here. Interviewing.
Yeah.
You can get shortlisted. Because of the position I hold, we interview people. Find somebody has all these top things and then they perform so poor at interview. And sometimes people didn't know. Interview, people use it to make a decision because you may have two people. You can't distinguish. They are both very strong. Then people say, okay, let's bring them for interview. And we will decide. So whether you are doing an interview or whatever, please take it as serious as anything else. Respond to questions where you can. If you can't, if you don't know, just accept you don't know, but you can find out. You will never be faulted for not knowing, but if you fumble around, that's what people take offense. But when you say, that one I'm not sure, I'm not been able, people don't mind about that one. The talk, we take people, candidates, for dinner. You find they appoint professors on the committee to take you for dinner. That's part of an assessment. So don't go there and drink too much. It's part of the assessment. When you are invited, remember the institution is spending money on you to assess you. So it's all that. But that's what all I can say, that you are on the right track, and if positions come up, people looking for whatever they are coming and apply.
Very short and fun. Please go ahead.
My name is Ashir Ndiribu. I'm from the school of engineering, and I did I'm a first local research fellow. My question goes to you for the national, because you mentioned about applications. So I'm doing research in AI for my connection. What I realized, people from this world, they do research from under these changes in AI. You cannot compete with them. If you start publishing during your PhD, they will publish very long. And now you're already at disadvantage. And how do you navigate that?
You know, people may start publishing at whatever stage. Sometimes we become so picky, we look at the quality of the publication. It suggests because of the stage you are in, become very which journal to target. Quality, high quality journals send there. The only challenge in high quality journals may take 3 years before you know.
So it's a kind of a hybrid work, but I would say the quality of the communication, the jam, and the fact that, and that's the purpose of post was meant to enable people who couldn't publish because of some other movement, to give them opportunity to publish. So in that case, I would say if you're doing that, make sure you publish. The more current you are, the better you will. Now, I know you're in the field, it's really growing, everybody's trying that. But look, what is important is sometimes originality. You may add to what people are doing, but make things maybe unique. But there may not be nothing unique, it's the communication, the writing, sharing. I still believe you're on the right path. And just continue doing what you're doing.
And in the interest of time, this will be our last question. So please go ahead, Richard.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the two speakers for the wonderful experiences you shared. So my question goes to Professor Nation. We talk about having research projects based elsewhere. For instance, I'm from Uganda. I may have a research project based in Uganda, but I have an interest of sharing my expertise in Canada, for instance. Where does that place me in navigating my aspiration of, sharing my expertise in Canada, for instance?
If you look at, if Canada was to learn only what is around, then it's a very shallow country. You're bringing a unique perspective to the system. That's what even is in UBC and so on. So people coming from different jurisdictions, doing research from there and sharing those insights. That's what I meant by publishing. Because when we are analyzing a situation, for example, if I'm making a problem statement, I want to say, currently there is no research done on this. Or I may say, there is limited research done. Only one that is done is in Uganda, right? See how you are contributing to that. So in this case, there is a perspective you're bringing to the world of research. I do most of my research in East Africa, Uganda being one of them. But the way I frame my perspectives, it's like something like the phrase that I use often when teachers are students, they tend to teach the way they were taught. Oh, you say that and you're giving data that I collected there. You see somebody here saying, oh, my teacher was doing the same. And so on. And somebody else will do a research where they will cite that and they say, this same thing has been seen in Uganda. So it's not a question of whether I hear or not. At UBC, when I got the job here, I presented my research on use of analogies. And one of the analogies that has really stood out and everybody in that room clapped was a very context-specific analogy. You know, electric views, you people know an electric views. People can explain it differently, whatever. But when I went to a classroom there, for the teacher to explain for kids to understand what an electric fuse was, because it's an appliance that protects the appliance. The teacher said an electric fuse is like a presidential bodyguard So the presidential bodyguard would rather die protecting the president. In that context, in your country, many of the people were referring to Idi Amin and the others, she had bodyguards. They were referring to the other presidents. You see bodyguards around them in the region. So you can see how people found that to be very interesting. Wow, that is true. When you are protecting a president, that is what people do. They all would rely on the president, safeguard the president, and others will get hurt, a few. So you can do research anywhere, but depending on how you are framing it, you have to know that it's local, but it will have to be read in the global. That's how I always tell people. The local, usually, it's very difficult. If you start with the global, the local people never understand what you're talking about. So it's always local, global. And we move around with our stories. So the stories we tell, we exchange, they're different cultures and so on. And lastly, let me just share something with you. What we use, the words we say, can be very different. I had a professor, fortunately he's passed on, in my department who organized the walking around every year. We used to walk around, professors would walk collecting money. So it was a fundraising exercise. So somebody proposed that why don't we call this a walkabout? When I grew up in East Africa, this is perfect. Because walkabouts were the servants for the master. And the master never did exercises. So when the servant came at 4 p.m., make tea for the master, found the master who had died out of heart attack, no exercise. But in a particular other community in another country, a local indigenous community, people used to go for a walkabout, going for a petition or whatever. Then a massacre happened. So that event has become an embarrassment. They don't want to talk about it. They oppose the use of that word, that phrase, walkabouts. So until we learn that, we say, okay, that's not it, because it has different meanings. So sometimes it's good to understand there can be cultural barriers, but with a reason. There's always something underlying. That's part of us scholars to investigate. Why is this happening? Thank you so much.
So thank you to both our speakers and to everyone here who has spent your time listening and engaging and asking questions. We really appreciate it. So now I'm going to pass it on to Jess, who's one of the co-chairs of LINA, to wrap things up for us today.
I hope everyone can hear me. I don't need to use a mic. As you've heard, my name is Jess. I'm a third-year PhD student right now, one of the co-chairs of LINA. I just want to share again gratitude. I'm grateful for the people who attended. You know, we can organize all these events, but if we don't have people around, then it's not a success. So we're extremely grateful that you signed up and you showed up. So a lot of gratitude for that. We're definitely indebted to both our presenters and what they have shared with us. I think it's always so empowering to hear stories of people who look like us, who have accomplished the things that we want to accomplish. So it doesn't feel so hard, because we know if they have done it and they're doing it, we can too. So thank you so much for just sharing your knowledge and wisdom. Something that has really stood up to me is relationship building. Build relationships in the small areas that you are, and they show up in different areas. And that would give me to big thanks to Alaitan. Without her moderating today and even just sharing that when Sop and I were looking for a place to host this event, it was through the connection and talking to her and her team that they were like, yeah, why not host it at the GSS? We have this. So I think some different ways that you basically build relationships show up. So thank you so much, and the Black Student Grad Network for basically sharing this basically knowledge for this space. And there's a QR code if you do not know about the Black Graduate Student Network. Scan and you can get newsletters from there. And lastly, we want to thank, we mentioned LINA, and LINA is a network hosted at the LU Institute, which is hosted under SPPGA, which is a School of Public Policy and Global Affairs. And thanks to their support, LINA has been in coexistence since 2016. We also want to thank ORIS, and that is the regional community and engagement. Okay, I'm forgetting it's big, but basically they deal with international community and engagement, and Tam, Mutuma, and Galen have really helped us organize this. We also have Joanne, who helped us in terms of the refreshments outside that we hope that you basically help yourselves. So thank you, Joanne, for providing nourishment. And lastly, to Sop. Sop is joined me as a co-chair recently, and he's really taken on the baton in terms of really bringing this. This is part of LINA coming back, and we want people to be involved, email us, see which ways we can engage with projects. I think this was really helpful. We saw a lot of questions, and we saw a lot of engagement. So with that, of course, our whiz behind the scenes. Thank you very much before I forget that. So yes, we hope to see you more often. We hope that this has been useful and helpful to everyone here. Have a good day, and please, yes, help yourself to refreshments outside.
So thank you all for coming. There is food outside, so we start eating. You know, in white food store, they start eating the food already. So you know, black people, that's culture, isn't it? We leave the food for later. So please, we don't want to go home with any food. Just eat whatever you have. If you are not Nigerian, it's really tasty. It's like I don't know if there's an equivalent to Ghana. It's really tasty. Then we have chicken, and we have some buns, yeah, from Madam Joan. And I thank you for coming. If you were expecting this conversation to move to, say, entrepreneurship, we can't do everything in 2 hours. And so I want you to know that we will be hosting an event in December that will talk about that. All right, thank you so much for coming. See you.
And if you did register, please just kindly check the outside of places.
I know.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you for helping me out.
Did you enjoy the show?
I'm happy people ask questions. I didn't have to ask.
It's gonna happen.